Sheriff Darren Weekly, Douglas County Sheriff's Office, Castle Rock, Colorado. Folks, I had the great honor and privilege of meeting Sheriff Weekly this past week, October 24th, 2024. We sat down for about an hour and a half and I got to talk with him about a lot of things dealing with our country, law enforcement, the border, gangs, lots of things like that. And it was just an amazing interview. And Sheriff Weekly, I'm so grateful that you allowed me this time to talk with you. And you talk with me so openly and freely. And your honesty, integrity really came forth in that interview. And you are a no-nonsense sheriff, and I so appreciate that. A constitutional sheriff, folks, which is something we need today, especially today. We're seeing our Constitution go by the wayside. A lot of people are just not even abiding by it. And our founding fathers were very strict with what might happen in our future, and it's happening right now. The tyranny, the things that we're seeing with our government, when government becomes destructive, it's our right and it's our duty to throw off that government and to provide new guards and new government for our future security, folks. That's in the Declaration of Independence, and they knew what they were talking about. So Sheriff Weekly, thank you again for your story. And folks, I'm happy to share it with you here on my Voices of History channel and on my radio station, Voices of History Radio. It's going to be a great, eye-opening, liberating message, and I hope you listen to the whole thing. It's about 80 minutes long, and I think you'll really enjoy it. And I want to give a great big thank you and hug to Michael and Darlene Sarofsky. They live in the Denver area. They see the importance of this interview, and they helped me with this trip. And thank you guys. God bless you. I appreciate you so much. Michael, I look into this camera and say, God bless you. Love you, brother, and I hope you enjoy this interview. So thank you for making it possible. Okay, folks, let's leave it at that. If you would like to share this video with others, I would appreciate it. Subscribe to this channel. It's really catching on. Sheriff Weekly's video short that I did, 60-second video short, went viral, over almost 1.5 million views as of this recording here, this broadcast today. And I'm just so grateful for everybody that's watching that and sharing that, because it's so important. Like I said, we talk about a lot of things in this interview, things that we need to know about. And he was very strong in that short. I have since produced another 60-second short just before the release of this video. So I invite you to watch that too. And join in Voices of History Radio and the veteran stories and the interviews that I've done over the years. We continue to feature them here. So if you're new to this channel, I've been doing this for 22 years, interviewing veterans of the military in the United States and Canada, and I've also interviewed a lot of law enforcement veterans. So honor them, give honor to whom honor is due. So God bless you. Thank you for watching. Let's honor Sheriff Weekly with this interview.
My name is Darren Weekly. I'm the elected sheriff of Douglas County. I've been the sheriff for about 2 years now, but I've been with the sheriff's office for 31 years.
Wow. You don't look that old. Everybody tells you that, right?
Right. No, I started when I was 21 years old. My first assignment was actually to work undercover in one of our high schools.
In Douglas County?
In Douglas County. Wow. So I did the whole 21 Jump Street thing.
So did you grow up here?
I grew up in Southeast Denver.
Okay.
So no, I wasn't, you know, my grandparents actually were one of the original residents in the Pinery, which is a subdivision that we have here in Douglas County, but that was back in the 1970s. But no, I grew up in Southeast Denver.
Okay, so Douglas County, tell me about how big this area is and the cities that it incorporates. Castle Rock, obviously.
Right, so Douglas County is 844 square miles. Countywide, we have a population of about 375,000, and then we have several municipalities to include Parker, Castle Rock, Lone Tree, and Castle Pines, which contracts with us for law enforcement services, as well as the town of Larkspur, which also contracts with us.
Does Castle Rock have a police department?
They do. Castle Rock, Lone Tree, and Parker have their own PDs.
Okay. I have worked limitedly in law enforcement years ago as a deputy reserve in Grand Junction, at Fruita, Colorado, and then I had a couple opportunities elsewhere. But correct me if I'm wrong, is the sheriff the top law enforcement officer in the county?
Well, it is. 'Cause I'm elected by the people. I have countywide jurisdiction. I'm also the fire marshal by statute. The municipalities, they have their own police departments, and so they handle their own problems within in their cities, but we often work together on various task forces and special teams, but they pretty much handle crime within their jurisdiction.
As far as size-wise, what do you rank in the state as far as county, as far as the size of the county? Is this one of the largest counties?
Well, for overall population, it is. Obviously, we're not compared to the city of Denver, but we are one of the larger cities, and we do serve a very large population of citizens.
Well, over 300,000. That's pretty good.
Yeah, 375,000, and we're different because one of our largest, most populated areas is Highlands Ranch. Highlands Ranch is not a city, so they're a metro district, but they're not a town or a city. So we provide law enforcement service for all of them as well, and that's somewhat unique.
And when you're elected, how many years is that for?
It's for 4 years, so I can do 2 terms, so I can do a total of 8 years, but I'm term limited at 2 terms.
So is this your first term?
It is.
So when does another election come?
About 2 years from now, I gotta. Well, I'll probably start running for office in about a year from now, and then hopefully get reelected, and then I'll have 4 more years.
Well, you got my vote. I'll come over here and vote. So is it like in politics, there's a Democrat sheriff or a Republican sheriff?
Yeah, it's just like any other elected position. So we have to get nominated by our party, and then we have to run in the general election. So I won the, let me back up a little bit. I won my primary race. It was a very heavily contested primary race. Douglas County is still fairly conservative, and so a large majority of our elections are won by Republicans. So for the most part, our elections are over at the primary. Douglas County is changing, so that's definitely a changing factor, but it was a dogfight in the primary to win the election. And then I ended up having 2 general election opponents. One was an unaffiliated candidate, and then one was a libertarian.
Well, I'm glad you won.
I am too.
Do you believe in divine appointments?
I do. I have worked my entire career to get to this position. I have worked very hard. I have intentionally gone the paths that are most difficult. There are very few positions in this organization that I have not worked in at every rank, and I feel that God has put me here at this time to do this job. This agency has never experienced the types of things that we're experiencing now. The violent nature of some of the crimes that we're dealing with. When I was a deputy on the street, 20 years ago, the violent acts were few and far between. Now it's almost a daily occurrence where our deputies are having to use force or run after bad guys or vehicle pursuits or anything like that. They're happening almost daily now. And we try to lead by example in terms of crime fighting. We're very aggressive crime fighters. When I raised my hand to take that oath as the sheriff, I promised the citizens that I was going to do everything that I could to keep Douglas County, Douglas County. And what I meant by that is I'm going to do everything I can to keep crime at a minimum. Can I eliminate crime? No, but I don't want our county to be like the rest of the Denver metro area. It's a mess. And I was born and raised in Southeast Denver. It is not the Southeast Denver that I grew up in. Most of the area that I grew up in an area not far from I-25 and Yale Avenue in Denver. And the last time I drove through there, which was just a couple of months ago, there was homeless people everywhere. Just appeared to be a high crime area. That's not what I grew up in the 70s and 80s. It's sad to see what has happened.
And we'll probably get into a little bit of that. One more question about your department here. How many sworn and non-sworn personnel do you have?
We have about 425 sworn, another 200 civilians, and about another 200-ish volunteers on top of that.
Do you have an age limit for a sworn deputy?
We absolutely do not. So my ex-father-in-law used to be a deputy sheriff, and he didn't go to the academy until he was in his 60s. And so he was still in decent physical condition. and we absolutely hired him on to be a deputy sheriff. So as long as you can physically do the job, we'll hire you.
Maybe we might talk later.
Okay, sounds good.
Oh, and I'll tell you my story later. But I get it one more time. I'm just so glad to be here. And when I said divine appointment, I'm glad you shared what you did. And I was also meaning today, why I'm here today and how this happened. 2 weeks ago, I saw Donald Trump at the rally in Aurora. And Forbes did a little 4-minute video on you when you talked. Now, I don't know if that was your entire speech, the 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds right.
But my sister, and by the way, my sister says hello. Her name's Teresa Daly. So, sis, I told him that I would say hi for you. But she sent me that video. And I have a YouTube channel called Voices of History where I feature my veteran stories, military veterans, and there's law enforcement. I did a film on 9/11. There's police in there, Holocaust. But they come out with these shorts. They're 60-second shorts, if you know what I'm talking about. I think TikTok kind of birthed all that. But anyways, and I didn't really go for it at first, but I have found another world around my Voices of History channel. So I did a 60-second edit, you probably don't know this, of that 4-minute Forbes story.
Okay.
Brother, it's gone viral.
Really?
Over 1 million views. It went over 1 million views yesterday.
Wow.
And I just took the parts that I felt that I needed to. I have almost 10,000 people who've commented on that video. And I'm just sharing that with you because there's so much support, I guess you could say, for you. I mean, yay, Darren, babe. I wish we had a sheriff like that. I mean, every accolade you can think of, very few negative things. And you have a 99% like. I mean, you don't like a video, right? But 99% of those 1 million plus people have liked your video.
That's awesome.
And so you're probably a household name. And I mean, when you have time, I'll send you the link, and if you want to look at some of the comments, you won't. I can't even keep up with them.
No, I'd love it. That'd be great. Thank you.
I mean, you are the most watched person on my YouTube channel. The only other video that had over 1 million views was my Vietnam film. It's called Vietnam Remembered. That has about 4 million views, but that's over several years. In 10 days, you went over 1 million views.
Wow.
So I'm just sharing that with you because I feel this is a divine appointment, man. And the fact that I'm going to talk with you today and we're going to add to that, and I'm really not into the numbers thing. The views are the views. But when I see a video trending like that and getting that much attention, that's pretty cool.
Wow.
It is for me.
No, it is for me too. That's awesome.
So I just wanted to tell you that. And so I'm proud of you. So I'm so glad to be here. But what you said, I mean, when you went to the rally, how did you get asked to speak at that rally?
Trump's people reached out to me a couple of days before. I've been involved in politics for a long time, obviously running for sheriff. I'm involved in party politics. Obviously somebody dropped the dime to Trump's people in regards to how I run this agency. I'm a no-nonsense crime fighter. I take pride in that. We do the job the right way. I hold my people accountable. We follow the law. But we're aggressive in terms of what we do. I allow my deputies to be cops. And other law enforcement agencies, they restrict their law enforcement officers on what they can do. As long as we are within the law and within policy, I let my people do what they do best. In terms of the Donald Trump opportunity, I don't know exactly who told him to reach out to me, but one of his folks did and asked if I'd be interested in giving a speech. And I said, absolutely, 100%. And so I was not given details in terms of exactly what my parameters were. But the day before, they said I had 3 minutes to speak. I didn't know how many people I was speaking with. I assumed there'd be a litany of people there. There wasn't. There was just a short list, and I was part of that. And I was honored to be part of that.
So the night before, what are you thinking?
I'm terrified. Honestly, I'm somewhat of an introvert by nature. As a kid, I was a pretty quiet kid. Being a law enforcement officer, you grow out of that very quickly, or you don't make it in this job. But overall, I don't need to be in the spotlight. It's not about me. And so I do the best that I can to run this agency the way that I think it needs to be run. But I'm not used to talking in front of large groups of people like that. I was very nervous, especially when I found out there was only a handful of us that were giving speeches. And so I practiced a lot for 2 days. It took some of the edge off by practicing so much, but when you get up there in front of all the lights and in front of thousands of people, I think there was over 10,000 people just inside the venue. And I felt good when I got out there. I felt a lot of energy. I think I'm guessing that's what maybe performers experience when they're in front of a group of people or athletes. It felt great to be up there, and things kind of, I got a little bit nervous up there and screwed up my speech a little bit, but it went really well overall. I think I got my message across. I was very mindful when I wrote the speech. I did not want to come across as somebody that's a racist or somebody that it was painting a broad brush with the migrant issue. I certainly don't feel that way, but I was very careful in my words. But everything really did come together well at the end.
It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Were you like in a green room before you went on with the other speakers and talking and? I mean, you know what I'm talking about, like a green room where they hold you over until you're ready to go.
Yeah, there was a little seating area. It was me, Derek Wolfe, a former Denver Bronco, Lauren Boebert.
A councilwoman from Aurora?
Yeah, Daniel Jurinsky was there. Gabe Evans was there. He's running for Congress. Greg Lopez, who's currently in Congress now. There was a bunch of us there. Out of the entire group, there was probably me and Derek Wolfe who had the least amount of experience talking in front of large groups of people. But again, he's a pro athlete, and I'm not used to doing that. But everybody was very kind and very helpful, and I just, I just put it in God's hands, frankly, and did the best that I could out there. And I was really blessed to have been given that opportunity. I'm not sure if she did or not, but I think Lauren Boebert probably helped me with that opportunity. And so, I'm just grateful. So she and I are probably going to meet at some point and talk about some different issues.
Is she over here in the Eastern Slope now?
She is. So she's running for Congress in this district.
Because she was over in Grand Junction.
Yes, yeah. So now she's running for CD4. So obviously we've got to get through the election, and then I'll take some time to meet with her. And the previous Congressman Ken Buck was formerly from this area as well. So the congressional representatives are tied with law enforcement, so they can know what the challenges are that we're dealing with.
Lots to talk about here. I'm just so grateful. So I'm listening to you, and what I heard on those 4 minutes, I'm trying to put words to it. I was so moved by what you shared. It was the heart, the spirit of what you shared, and the position that you have. We are like the children of Israel. We've been waiting for this person to come and deliver us kind of speech. That's what we heard. That's what I heard. Why aren't all sheriffs like this? How come everybody's not like this? They go, finally, somebody spoke up. I mean, these are repeated hundreds of times in the comments. And so, you are a voice for this generation, and for a lot of people you will never meet. But that was a great opportunity, and that's why I'm here. If the cause is great enough, it's worth the effort. It's well worth coming over here and talking to you today. Tell me your concern today for law enforcement in general, with what you see, maybe.
It's always been a dangerous job, long before I got into it. But people seem much more willing to hurt law enforcement officers, to kill law enforcement officers. The challenges that my deputies are dealing with on a daily basis are much different than I had to deal with 20, 30 years ago when I was out there on the street. People seem much more willing to, I don't want to say question authority, because I don't think there's an issue with questioning authority, but they're much more willing to fight with us, to hurt us, to run from us, to argue with us. And so it's a much different job. I think law enforcement, absolutely 100%, we should be held accountable. We should be held to a higher standard. And if somebody in my organization doesn't meet that standard, I fire them. So I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't be held to a higher standard, but it's tough to be a law enforcement officer. We are everything to everybody. When people can't figure out who to go to solve a problem, they call law enforcement, and we're tasked with dealing with that. Whether that's mental health crisis, whether that's homelessness, whether that's, you name it, we're it. We're everything from an auto mechanic to a marriage counselor to, we solve all the world's problems. And so it's tough. It's a tough job. And on top of that, we're blessed here in Douglas County because the majority of citizens appreciate public safety. It has nothing to do with politics, has everything to do with public safety. Because I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican, I've got people from both sides of that. Sheriff, you're doing a great job, keep it up. But it's a tough job. It's not the same job it was when I was 21 years old coming into it.
When I first contacted you, help me remember, I think you said you thanked me for my support because you had some bad emails or phone calls. So was that like just a couple or a whole bunch or what?
I've had a handful of them, voicemails and emails, people that are mad at me. People yelling at me because they, how dare you, how could you support a convicted felon? You're a sheriff, you should be removed from office. Just people that are supporting, Kamala Harris, the other candidate for office. I get it, everybody has their opinion. I'm elected, so in terms of law enforcement and how we do our job, we don't do our job based upon your political affiliation or who you are. We do our job the best of our ability. I run this organization the way it should be run. We don't play partisan politics in law enforcement. But being the elected sheriff, that's different than a police chief. Police chief is appointed. They answer to a town manager or city council. I answer to the people that elected me. And so it's a different job. And so I think a lot of people don't realize that you elect a sheriff, and sheriff is an elected position. I hope it stays that way because I think it would be tragic if it didn't. I know that a couple of years ago there was somebody in the legislature that tried to make sheriff a nonpartisan race. Well, there are no nonpartisan races. There might not be a D or an R behind the name, but there are no nonpartisan races. But I serve all citizens. Some of the people that wrote me nasty emails or gave me nasty voicemails, I don't think they understood that we don't serve and protect based upon your political affiliation. I did a recent interview with a local newspaper, and they asked me, well, do you think that somebody who's a migrant might not call your agency if they need help because of your speech, for Trump? I said, I certainly hope that's not the case. My deputies, myself, I would give my life to protect theirs. I don't care if they're a migrant or if they're a U.S. citizen. So I hope that's not the case. I think some people's view of law enforcement is either jaded or very short-sighted with what our role is and what we do. My deputies literally put their lives on the line every single day they come to work. I know people have heard that before, but I want you to think about that for a second. They would die to protect you or your family, even though they have never met you. Those people are hard to find. That's why it's hard to get into this line of work. They have numerous psychological exams, a polygraph exam. We do thorough background checks on their history. We give them a lot of power and authority, but also we want them, if something bad is happening, are they willing to make the ultimate sacrifice to save their whatever the situation is, to save somebody in their community. And so that's who we hire here. And again, it's tough to find the right people to fill that role. And I think people that don't understand that, honestly, I think that's sad, that they don't understand that there's men and women out there dressed just like I am, that are willing to give their life for people that they've never met. And some people can't wrap their arms around that.
Well said. When I asked you about your concern about law enforcement, part of what I was asking was, you know, as a citizen looking, hearing, I don't listen to the mainstream media. I'll watch some Fox stuff, but and being familiar with the job, do you think? Okay, I don't know how to ask this other than just my concern is that there might be agencies, sheriffs, chief, whoever, that people that aren't upholding their oath and they're breaking their oaths, and that's my concern going forward with what we see in the country right now. Hopefully it'll all change soon for the better, but I'm wondering, you know, you hear, when I saw pastors arrested in Canada for, you know, keeping their church open, and you saw these law enforcement, they looked like SS Gestapo from World War II.
Yep.
The way they treat it and drag them along. So is there factions of that? Is that a concern of yours, or does everybody keep in their oath and it's just, let's soldier on here? I mean,
it depends on the individual, and I think that's one thing that's important when you elect a sheriff. When I was running for office, there was a lot of bad information, or quite frankly, it was nonsense. Well, if you're a constitutional sheriff, you know, you have the authority to defy the federal government. You have the authority. You have more power than the president. That's nonsense, right? If the FBI comes to do a warrant in my jurisdiction and I tell them they can't, and I'm going to end up in cuffs and get drug away. What you need is strong leaders that understand what their role is and what their authority is. And you need leaders that are willing to make the tough decisions and put themselves at risk. I put myself at risk as soon as I decided to run for office. I had to be prepared to walk away from this job that I love so much to run to be the sheriff, because if I lost, I wasn't going to be here anymore. I was going to have to go find something else to do. It's critically important, whether you're a police chief who's appointed and those responsible for appointing that police chief, or you're a sheriff that's elected, you need to have somebody that has a backbone, is willing to say, no, we're not going to do that. As a law enforcement officer, I know, and my cops out on the street know, every law enforcement officer knows this, we have the authority to use discretion on what we're going to do or what we're not going to do. You know, I'm quite sure that most people every day break a law, right? You drive a couple miles over the speed limit. Did you really stop at that stop sign? Did you forget to signal when you change lanes? Law enforcement has the authority to have discretion. Back to your point, the issues that we all saw in 2020, I wasn't the sheriff here yet, but I was a captain. The sheriff that was here when they started shutting businesses down in the Denver metro area and going after churches, and I remember a lot, you know, I remember watching the news and they were locking church doors. But the pot shops were open and the liquor stores were open. Walmart was still open, but they're closing up the churches. The sheriff that was here at the time, Tony Spurlock, he says, we're not doing that. We would actually have people call 911 to report people that were not wearing their mask in Walmart or whatever business. Hey, they're not wearing their mask, and they would call 911 and expect us to go out there and take enforcement action of these people. We didn't do that here. We responded to the complaint, and we just told the person, according to this business, you need to wear your mask or you're not welcome onto the property. And so they could decide whether they wanted to give their business to them or they wanted to move on. We never wrote a single ticket. We never closed a single business. Anybody that complained, like if a church was holding a service, we referred them to the Department of Health. It's not the role of the sheriff, right? We don't want to turn otherwise law-abiding citizens into criminals. It's not the right thing to do.
Good, great. That's good to hear. Getting back to what you shared, I mean, it was well written. You thought it out. It wasn't just, you know, but you really, I think, laid some groundwork with you know, here in Douglas County, we're going to enforce the law. I mean, and if the bad guys come here armed, they're gonna leave with handcuffs on. I mean, that was really strong, what you said there. I don't like what I'm seeing today with a lot of these things. Now, maybe it's being overstated, but there are gangs, right? There are gangs in this country because of the open border. That's a fact.
Right.
That's not a conspiracy theory. There are gangs. I don't know how in network you are with other sheriffs in your work, but this thing in Aurora, I just want to touch on it in that all I saw was what you saw, probably the armed guys trying to get through a door. Weren't they breaking the law?
They were.
Totally.
They were. I think that particular agency, and I'm not taking a shot at the city of Aurora, but it's clear that if you have a group of citizens that don't feel that they have a relationship with their law enforcement agency, that they wouldn't call 911 and have the confidence that you would actually solve the problem, that's an issue. If you're a chief or a sheriff and your citizens don't want to call you for help, that's a problem. That would not happen in this community. And if we had a bunch of gang members or criminals with rifles walking through an apartment complex, I can tell you it'd take about 10 seconds for somebody to call 911 and tell us what's going on. And we would go out there and we would handle it. And we would do whatever is necessary to ensure that that community is safe, that building is safe. We hold criminals accountable. If you follow us on social media, you will see us catching bad guys. We release body cam video, we release car cam video on pursuits. We show the community what we're doing. A couple reasons for that. One is so the community actually sees that their law enforcement is working hard to keep their community safe. But secondly, it's so criminals know, don't come down here and commit crimes. We're not going to put up with it. We have had multiple criminals tell my deputies, I knew I shouldn't have come to Douglas County. And my response to them is tell your friends, because we will not put up with it. We may not catch you that day, but our detectives will catch you later on. Do we solve every crime? No, but we're going to put a lot more work into it than most other agencies would. And so that's the expectations I think that most people have of their law enforcement. If you've got gang members roaming around an apartment complex, beating down doors, carrying rifles, threatening people, I can't fathom in this community that would happen. It wouldn't happen. So I think Aurora, they have a new police chief now. I'm hopeful that he will take the right steps to repairing the relationship that obviously that agency has with some of its residents. I hope that he empowers his law enforcement officers for them to do their job. Because when I campaigned for this position, I didn't promise a bunch of new programs. I promised that we would get back to basics. We would get back to the fundamentals of why we do this job and how we do this job. And that's the patrol deputy on the street. That's the detective solving crimes. That's what people want us around for. They don't want us around making TikTok videos and doing lip sync songs and stuff like that. They want to know that law enforcement is working to keep their community safe, that we have the school resource officers. The Douglas County School District has the largest school resource officer program in the entire state of Colorado. It's bigger than Denver, it's bigger than Aurora, because again, citizens appreciate public safety. They know that their kids are going to go to school and there's going to be a law enforcement officer there. Yeah, we want to have a good relationship with those kids, but bottom line is that cop is there to keep those kids safe in the event that something unthinkable were to occur. And that law enforcement officer, our deputy sheriff, ensures that they put themselves between those kids and anybody who intends to hurt them.
What's the county north of you?
Arapahoe County.
Is that Aurora?
Part of it, yeah.
East Arapahoe or East Arapahoe? What county is Aurora in?
I've got a small piece of Aurora in my county. It's suburban area. The majority, Aurora has two counties. They have Adams County and Arapahoe County, but the majority of Aurora is in Arapahoe County.
Okay. Have you had any contact with the sheriff in Arapahoe County about the situation with the gangs?
Not specifically, no.
Are you friends?
Yeah, we know each other. We've gone to meeting. We have several meetings together. We have open dialogue, it's a good relationship. So, but we haven't specifically talked about the gang issue.
Have you served in the military?
I did not.
Okay. Well, in the military, when things need to get done, they usually call the Marines. Send us in, we'll take care of it. Vietnam didn't have to go for 10 years. I mean, we could have just taken care of business. So with this gang situation, why aren't we sending in the Marines, as it were, literally or figuratively?
I can't answer for the city of Aurora. I think my personal opinion, there's a lot of politics that played into this. I think the city of Aurora could have been a lot more transparent with the issues that are going on in that community. I don't think Aurora would have had the backlash that they're having now if they had been more transparent. Aurora initially, when this whole story broke, and it broke because that video got to a news reporter. If that hadn't happened, I still think this stuff would have been getting even more minimized than it was, that it is now. The reason the story broke is because that reporter got that and put it out there. And then Aurora, within a couple of days, they shut down these complexes because of code violations, is what they said. But then the news footage, you see what we call a fully kitted up SWAT operator, so wearing all the SWAT gear and the rifle and everything else, going door to door. You don't send people like that going door to door for code violations. Be transparent with the community about what's going on in that community. Tell them exactly what's happening and what you're doing to fix it. To turn it into something else, I think, is why they're dealing with the aftermath and misinformation. Do I think the city of Aurora has been taken over by gangs? No, I don't. Do I think certain areas of Aurora? Sure, absolutely. I think that's entirely possible. If they don't address it, it's going to get worse. Comparing us to Aurora is like, they're a larger city than we are, but I still think crime fighting approaches, whether you're a large city or a county sheriff's office, if you're still aggressive in the crime fighting efforts and going after these people, I think you will reduce crime. We had a auto theft ring where we tracked people down to the Dallas Street apartments in Aurora, and there were stolen cars everywhere. And the city of Aurora had to have known there were stolen cars everywhere. They did nothing about it. So when you have issues like that and you're not doing anything about it, guess what? The criminals know that you're not going to do anything about it, and they're going to keep going on as business as usual. And I think that's where you lose the connection with the citizens who are like, I'm not calling law enforcement because if I do, the criminals are going to take it out on me because nothing's going to happen to them. And then now I'm just going to be a victim. So I'm just going to stay out of it. Again, strong law enforcement leadership won't allow that to happen. Strong law enforcement leadership would expect you to go out, if you're a cop, go out, handle the call for service, make sure you do a good report, make sure we can prosecute these people, and let's make examples of these criminals. And if you don't do that, and people don't feel safe to call their law enforcement, you end up like Aurora is now. And again, they have a new police chief. I'm hoping they can fix that.
How new is he?
He just started. I don't think he's even had a month on the job yet.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. Let's help ease the mind of the American people now. So, do you think there are nests of these gangs, specifically the Venezuelan gangs that were released from prison that Donald Trump talks a lot about? Or is it just here and there, it's not a big deal? Or they keep talking about Springfield, Ohio. I'm not sure. Or other places. I heard New York City now, or just were these Venezuelan gangs. I feel like what you said, if it's left if you don't do anything about it, it's going to get worse. Is that kind of where we're at right now in our country?
Absolutely. If you don't have enforcement, if there's no consequences for breaking the law or hurting people, that behavior is going to continue. I just dedicated a detective that I sent to the FBI Violent Criminal Enterprise Task Force. It's a Denver metro area task force. And before I gave them one of my detectives, I told their leadership, I expect a return on my investment. So that cooperation, so we can help hold these criminals accountable, these gang members accountable, and those who intend to hurt people, extort people for money, whatever they are into to try to make money, because that's what gangs do. They're not in these gangs just for the fun of it. They're in these gangs to make money, easy money, and victimize citizens. And so if you don't take an aggressive approach, I want a front seat at the table so I know exactly what's going on and making sure it's not affecting my community. That's why I did that. If you're not aggressive in enforcing these issues, then it's going to just continue to proliferate.
Tell me about the Second Amendment. What are your thoughts? The Constitution, the Second Amendment. I have a hat that says the second protects the first. Tell me about the Second Amendment, what it means to you.
Well, I don't say that I'm a Second Amendment supporter. I say I'm a Second Amendment defender. And what I mean by that is I've gone down several times to the state legislature. As of late, the legislature every year, and I fully expect they'll come back next year for more legislation to restrict the Second Amendment and citizens' constitutional right to bear arms. I fully believe that law-abiding citizens of sound mind should be allowed to carry firearms. I think they should be allowed to own rifles. There are members of our legislature that don't think they should be allowed to have that. And I've gone down to testify against a lot of these bills. There's 64 sheriffs in Colorado right now. I think the last time I testified against the latest attempt at an assault weapons ban, there was only 4 or 5 of us that actually went down to the legislature and said, no, this is not a good idea. This is a violation of our constitutional rights. I don't have the exact number for you, but hundreds of thousands of Americans own AR-15 platform rifles. We're not having problems with hundreds of thousands of Americans committing mass murder. Law-abiding citizens should not be affected by that. Now, I will enforce the law. And if you're a citizen who breaks the law or threatens people with firearms, or if we have intelligence information to suggest that you're going to go and kill a bunch of people or go to a school and kill a bunch of children, I'm going to do everything I can to stop you and hold you accountable and put you in prison. But to take firearms that are commonly owned away from law-abiding citizens is just wrong. And it's not what our country was founded upon. And I think year by year, whether you're talking at the state level or federal level, year by year, our rights are being chipped away at us under the guise of safety. And so our job as citizens is to hold our elected leaders accountable for that. Of course, everybody wants to feel safe. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of these people that are committing these horrific acts are obtaining these weapons illegally. They shouldn't even have firearms in the first place, and they're committing these acts. There was a recent shooting not too long ago. I think it was actually the city of Aurora. I think it was an 18-year-old that they had to shoot that obviously shouldn't have had a firearm in the first place. And so, again, it's keeping firearms out of the hands of those who lawfully should not have those firearms. But again, to take away firearms from law-abiding citizens who have done nothing wrong, I think it flies in the face of our Constitution and the founding of this country.
Shall not infringe upon our rights, and all these political tactics. It seems like there's just a few people that want to just destroy the whole thing.
Well, one of the laws they tried to pass during this last legislative session, even law enforcement officers, it was the safe spaces law. So certain places you couldn't carry a firearm. So churches, schools, like I think even shopping centers and places like that were in there. They didn't even want cops who were off duty carrying a firearm in those areas. I'm a former SWAT officer. I've been a cop for 31 years. If we're going to have something happen at a church or a shopping mall, you want me there when I'm off duty, trust me. But the fact that people have lost touch with exactly, I think they've got a different view of reality. They think if they put a law in the books that it's going to make everyone safe, and people will just obey this law. If you create a gun-free zone, the only thing you're telling somebody that wants to go in there and kill a bunch of people is it's less likely you're going to have a good guy there with a gun to protect those people. That's all you're doing. People that commit murder don't care about gun-free zones. People that commit murder don't care about gun laws. They're just going to commit murder. And so the fact that some of our legislators believe that I'm just going to create another law and it's going to fix this problem, it's, you know what? I wish that were the truth. I wish we didn't have murder, but that's not reality. That's not the world we live in. And it's not gotten better, it's gotten worse. And so the fact that you put more and more laws on the books and criminals continue to not follow them, it's not helping. It's not helping keep our communities safe, that's for sure. In Douglas County, we have over 40,000 concealed weapons permits out there. And we very rarely ever even have to remove one from someone. The only time we do is if they break the law, or they're legally prohibited from having a firearm. But with almost 40,000 concealed weapons permits out there, we have very few incidents of people ever misusing that permit. But people want that permit to keep their family safe, to keep themselves safe, to keep their loved ones safe when they're out in the community.
Hypothetical situation, they say if he doesn't get in office, Kamala Harris is going to take your guns away. She can do this, she can do that. Well, I hope that would never happen. I hope we never have to have a situation like that. But is that even practical? Let's say somebody passes something and they say, you know what, we got to take away all the guns. I mean, you're a constitutional sheriff. I mean, that's extreme. I understand. It may not be fair asking you that, but you're going to follow the law. But when it breaks the Constitution, and you take an oath to uphold the Constitution, where do you draw the line?
The federal government has passed these types of laws before, and that's where you get back into the discretion factor. The federal government does not have the ability to go in, and nor would we help them go in breaking people's doors down to take their guns away. It's going to be interesting to see how the next couple of years unfolds. I'm hopeful the pendulum is swinging the other way. Do I think it's possible that a president would get in and try to enact some sort of legislation to take people's firearms away or something like that? Sure, I think that's possible. Also, based upon the makeup of Congress, could they pass some sort of legislation? Sure. How are you going to get that done? Because there's already been case law. They cannot recruit local law enforcement to do their bidding for them. It's been tried before. And sorry, I can't remember the sheriff's name, but he won his lawsuit. It was during the Brady Act, and they were going to charge local officials with having to do the backgrounds as part of the Brady bill. And the sheriff won his lawsuit that it was a violation of the Constitution for them to be able to do that. So the federal government, we have great federal partners. I work very well with the FBI, DEA. They're great people. I recently graduated from the FBI National Academy in Quantico. And they are the people the FBI that I know, they're patriots. They love their country. They truly do. And I guess that's my long-winded way of saying that I have faith in the future. I have faith in our federal partners. I have faith that people are going to make the right decisions and do the right things. So I just think, I could sit here and just, well, if this happens, we're going to do this. If that happens, everything is going to be very fluid to see how things turn out. Everybody's concerned about local law enforcement, one day just coming and breaking down their door and taking their guns away or doing what have you. I think we're a long way from that. I really do. And I do think the pendulum is swinging the other way right now. I think people are starting to see that and question what's going on here. Why are we doing this? I'm old enough to remember the Jimmy Carter days. I was a little kid, but I remember when the Iran hostage crisis, and before Ronald Reagan took office, those hostages were released. And I think we're at that point now. I think people are fed up. I think people can't pay their bills anymore. I think people see America is in decline, and I don't think that sits well with most Americans, Republican or Democrat. And we need to be the America that we used to be, that we were that shining city on a hill, the example of freedom and liberty to the rest of the world. And when we're not that, and we are a nation in decline, I think it's just for me as a citizen, it's just tough to watch, because we had been that beacon, that shining city on a hill, and I don't think our allies even trust that we're that anymore. You look at what's going on in Israel. I recently attended, I'll share with you, I won't disclose the location. I recently attended Yom Kippur event locally, and there was thousands of Jewish folks there. And it was a day or two after the Trump rally, and I was welcomed into their event. I didn't know what to expect, but they asked me to come and say hello, and I got a standing ovation. And they showed a piece of my speech, and they just applauded. My wife was standing up there with me, and I can send you a picture.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect, and I just had tears in my eyes. I think the Jewish people feel betrayed about what's happening right now. I think they do. And again, things shouldn't be this way. The fact that I gave a speech for Donald Trump, who so many people dislike, and the fact that those Jewish people were there from all over Colorado, and the reaction that they had to my speech, it was moving. I didn't expect to walk into what I walked into, and I was moved by that experience, and it put together for me how critical this election is, and how many people are counting on things to change, and for a lot of the things that have happened over the last 4 years to stop, and for common sense to start prevailing. I get why people don't like Donald Trump. I understand that, right? That's not lost on me. I'm not blindly worshiping this presidential candidate. But the fact is, what the path that we are currently headed on now, I get why you don't like Donald Trump, but how can you choose this other path? How can you choose? It just seems to me that some people hate him so much, they hate him more than they love their country. That's kind of what I see. I get it. Get why you don't like Donald Trump, but do you hate America that much? Because the path we're on now is a path to nowhere. And I don't like what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I don't either. That's a great analogy there as far as deciding and choosing and empowering people and speaking forth the truth. And that's what I'm about. I'm tired of people making decisions based upon lies. There's so much lies. Many people are brainwashed by the media, the propaganda. You saw it in World War II. I find it interesting that they say they compare Trump with Hitler. Well, I think they need to look in the mirror, and everything they're saying, I see them doing. But tell me about your faith. I mean, how big is your faith in your role as a sheriff and law enforcement?
I was raised Catholic, and so when I was a kid, I was an altar boy for the Catholic Church. Not gonna lie, I really did not like going to church, but I always had a strong belief in God. And as a law enforcement officer, there's a local church here, Cherry Hills Community Church, and I started working off-duty jobs. I started working off-duty jobs at Cherry Hills Church on Sundays, so they would contract for a law enforcement officer to be there during their services. It's a very large church in the Highlands Ranch area. And I have worked that church for about 25 years. So 25 years, if you came to church there, unless I was out of town or on vacation, you would see me standing in that church protecting everybody there. And so that church and the congregation, they became like family to me. I think one of the reasons that I got elected and I had so much support was because of the people in that church. Not that I recruited them, they just know me, they knew who I was. And just the fact of being there every Sunday, I pretty much was going to church every Sunday and watching and listening to the message. When I ran for office, it was tough on me and my family, more so my wife, because politics is ugly. Politics is far more ugly than police work by by a large margin. People are horrible, especially in this age of social media and things like that. People say horrible things they never say to your face. It was a grueling campaign, and I kept putting it in God's hands, that if I'm meant to be here, it's in God's hands. I got to work for it. I got to do everything I can to obtain it. But if it doesn't work out and I don't get elected, then it wasn't meant to be. And so I would literally wake up every day, look at the ceiling, and I'm like, okay, I'm one day closer. I'm one day closer. That's how horrible it was for my family and I. When you and I first started talking, I told you I believed that God put me here in this position for a reason. I firmly believe that. I don't know if I'm serving that mission right now, just in general, or there's something coming that, because of my decisions, things are going to happen that's going to save lives. I don't know, and it's not for me to question. But I believe that I've been here, placed in this position to serve this community and to keep people safe, to save lives. The work that we do, I have a sign in my office. And the sign I got when I went to a homicide class many years ago. And the sign says, remember, we work for God. I firmly believe that. We work for God here on earth. We hold evildoers responsible. It's up to the juries and it's up to the courts to administer what justice is appropriate. But we work for God down here on earth, and we hold those criminals accountable. And for as much as my family and I have gone through for me to get to this point, I can't help but believe that God put me here for a reason.
I'm going to digress to an extreme, and if you can't comment on some, it won't bother me, but I don't like Jared Polis. I don't think he's upholding the Constitution with the things he's trying to do, and I could go down the list. I just defy him, like David defied Goliath. I have no respect for him. And can you comment at all about the governor? Or, I mean,
I don't. Just from my perspective, I don't know the man. I've met him twice, I think, in my tenure as sheriff. On the surface, seems like a fine guy, but I don't think he really understands what the average citizen is dealing with in the state of Colorado. He's very wealthy. I don't think he even realized that there was a bunch of homeless people that were encamped out in front of the governor's mansion, because he doesn't live in the governor's mansion. I don't think he's got a clue about the average citizen is dealing with every day and what their concerns are, to put food on the table. I think he's got a personal agenda that he wants to see fulfilled. I don't think that agenda is in the best interest overall of the citizens of the state of Colorado. I think it's based upon what he feels his personal agenda is for the state. You know, this state is still rapidly evolving. I think personally the state is deteriorating. The Colorado that I grew up in is Colorado, it's long gone. That Colorado doesn't exist anymore. And the high crime, the homelessness, the cost of living, and then, you know, the governor wants affordable housing. I have no problem with affordable housing, but if you put affordable housing everywhere, there's certain issues that come with that affordable housing, right? And I just think that's contrary to what the citizens of Colorado want. I think people are starting to move out of Colorado now because they've seen the increase in crime. You know, it went from California to Colorado, and now Colorado's, you know, being run into the ground, and people are going to go find somewhere else to move to. And so when elections have consequences, and I just strongly feel that people just need to vote and be involved in what's going on in their communities. Back to your original question for Jared Polis. I don't know him very well. I just think he's very disconnected and doesn't understand what the real issues are.
You're very kind. Yeah.
One of the things that bothered me, some of the complaints that I got is they tried to spin this, that this was giving my speech was a race issue. Had absolutely nothing to do with race whatsoever. This is a public safety issue. As far as the open border, I'm very concerned that our nation could be attacked. As I mentioned in my speech, Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, told Congress they don't know who's come across this border, and they don't know who they are or where they are. I think our federal partners are doing everything that they can to keep the United States safe. I firmly believe that. I truly do. But they can't be everywhere and know everything. Am I worried that there's a cell in this country that's going to do something horrible? I am worried about that. I hope I'm wrong. I hope nothing happens. But am I worried? Yeah. You can't have that many people coming across the open border. And what people forget is people from all over the world know that our border is open. And so all they have to do is get to the right place to come across that southern border. So whether you're talking somebody from Afghanistan, China, wherever throughout the world, they know we have an open border. And so if somebody wants to get into this country and with bad intention of hurting a lot of people, they know exactly how to do it. And so I just think it's horrible. What I said in my speech was, and I firmly believe this, the most critical role of the United States government is to protect its citizens. And I believe that the Biden-Harris administration has turned their backs on the American people. They've turned their backs on American law enforcement. They don't care who's coming across the border. And I fear that there could be consequences for that. And whether it's a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, I worry. I lose sleep over that. I do, because I'm worried something bad's going to happen, and who knows what that could be.
Yeah, I am too. That I'm glad you brought that up, because I would have left here thinking, oh no, because that was so powerful what you said. It really connected with a lot of people. And from a law enforcement perspective, and enforcing the law, is it illegal to cross the border like they're coming over?
It is.
Aren't they breaking the law?
It is, but it depends on who you talk to. Local law enforcement doesn't have the authority to enforce federal law. There are people that argue, well, they're seeking political asylum. Okay, well, during the Trump administration, you had to stay on the other side of the border and then put your application in for political asylum. We're not talking about people that are escaping assassination or escaping murder. And so the fact that that was all scrubbed so that people could come into this country and be bussed all around this country, and the issues that we're now facing with TDA and other gangs and other criminals. I'm not suggesting all these migrants are criminals. I'm not suggesting that at all. But I am suggesting there are criminals among those people that are only here for one reason, and that's to commit other crimes, to commit other acts. And it scares me. It worries me. And people need to pay attention to what's going on, because it matters. It does. I don't care what party affiliation you're with. You need to pay attention to what's going on.
Well, somebody's got to be held accountable for this eventually. I mean, so that's totally a huge thing. And I don't know. I got lots of feelings on that. I'm not going to go into all that, but I'm glad glad what you said, because that really connected with a lot of people too. I feel the same way. I woke up the other morning. I've interviewed a lot of war veterans. World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, the Gulf War. I've interviewed law enforcement veterans. So, and many of them are concerned. But I got to thinking, in World War II, when they would do bombing raids over Europe or even in the Pacific or Japan, I would ask the pilots, what are your targets? Well, they take out the railroads, the bridges, they take out the fuel supplies, they take out the food supplies in Vietnam, starve them out. And I got to thinking, in today's technological world, Sheriff Weekly, I don't think it would be too hard to have a dedicated group of people coordinate taking out all the communications in an area. Let's just take that down. Get rid of the 911 communications, however they do that, and then start, knocking out the power or whatever, and then just, those things scare me.
water supplies.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can, the list doesn't, I don't think it would take a whole lot of brains and sense to blow up a cell tower, and take down cell towers and knock out communications and I hope to God, like you said, that doesn't happen. But why do I wake up that morning thinking like that? It's just like,
well, look at the COVID pandemic and look at when there's certain areas of our state even that have lost power. What people run to Walmart, they buy up all the supplies, they buy up all the toilet paper, everything else. Now imagine if we had a real crisis in this country. We had no water. We actually had an electrical grid that was shut down. We had some sort of a terrorist attack where people were targeted, churches were targeted, schools were targeted, something like that. I wouldn't be a very good sheriff if I didn't think worst case scenario every single day. And so I think worst case scenario. When I think about people coming across our southern border and we don't know who they are, they might, and it's the kind of evil that exists in this world. It's difficult for the average citizen to fathom the type of evil that exists in this world, and type of people that hate the United States of America and everything that we represent. I lose sleep, and so it's. I don't know what I was getting with that, but it's an issue that I don't think people are making a big enough deal about.
Well, you said that in your speech.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to be focusing on this, and I wonder how many sheriffs across the country or law enforcement. Do you think law enforcement just in general is on high alert right now? I mean, you know what I mean? I don't know if there's an actual alert, but aren't you, with the election coming up and stuff and the border, I mean, don't you think law enforcement's kind of on high alert?
I do, and I believe that those law enforcement leaders that are paying attention, that are taking their job seriously and are training their staff appropriately, are sharing the intelligence information and receiving that intelligence information from our federal partners, they better be paying attention because if they're not, they're negligent in their duties. They're negligent to the citizens that they serve. They're negligent to the law enforcement officers that work for them. So the best thing that we can do is be prepared, train our staff appropriately, keep our citizens informed of what's going on in their community, and just pray and hope that nothing happens. But if we do have any indications that something's going to happen, act quickly on it and decisively and work every lead into the ground until you get it resolved. We get a lot of information, sometimes misinformation about potential criminal conduct. Well, you've got to follow up on all that stuff and determine what it actually is.
What's the number one need from law enforcement for law enforcement from the community? What's the thing that you need from the community? A need that,
Support, 100% support. Understand what the funding needs of your law enforcement agency, whether it's a police department or a sheriff's office. Understand what the chief or sheriff is dealing with in terms of funding. How many more cops do they need? What all is that law enforcement agency involved in terms of task forces or special programs? Be involved and engaged, but the biggest thing is support. It makes such a huge difference. You look at the city of Aurora and Douglas County, two completely different law enforcement agencies. The citizens of Douglas County appreciate public safety. They appreciate what their law enforcement does. They appreciate that their kids go to safe schools and they don't have to walk around homeless encampments to get to the bus stop, that they can have a business and not be worried about, a bunch of criminals coming in and walking away with their products. It's not going to happen in this county. And then you look at somewhere like Aurora where they're really struggling with those things right now. We have the support of the citizens that we serve, and that makes a huge difference. That determines kind of the level of response that they're going to get from their law enforcement agency. We're not struggling with hiring people. Other agencies are, larger agencies. Denver or Aurora pays better than we do, and they're struggling to get cops. We're not struggling to get cops. People want to come to work for this organization because both the citizens and the administration appreciate their law enforcement. It makes a huge difference.
Right.
People wave at us with all 5 fingers, and it makes this job is tough anyway. But when the citizens appreciate the work that you do, it means a lot to those cops.
I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and we'll be done. I ask this at the end of my interviews with the war veterans. First question: what does freedom mean to you?
life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and having the freedom to make your own decisions. That's what freedom means to me. Now that I've gotten a little bit older, a little bit wiser, freedom also means being free to make your own mistakes and being free from government intervention and regulation. Don't mean to come across like some far-right extremist, because I'm not. I'm part of the government. I work in the government. But our country seems to have taken a giant step towards socialism. And Ronald Reagan warned us about that many years ago. And that is what terrifies me, is that we are taking that giant step towards socialism with medicine, with programs and services that I still value. The way that I was raised, my father was a Marine and was in Vietnam. Both of my parents raised me to never rely on another person or the government to take care of your problems for you. You're going to make your own way in the world. And it just seems, again, with the step towards socialism and government regulation in this country, that 30, 40 years ago would have been unheard of. It worries me. So what freedom means to me is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and for everybody to be responsible for themselves and their own decisions, and then free to do whatever they want to do without government interference. Again, I'll go back to government's role is to protect its citizens, not to run their lives. And I think we've gotten to the point where government's starting to run people's lives.
I like the Thomas Jefferson quote. He said, "There's never any justification for taking away an individual's freedom under the guise of public safety." That's
well said.
That's good. And one more quote. Jim Caviezel said this. He says, freedom exists not to do what you like, but rather to do what you ought. Within the scope of the law. So I like that too.
Yep.
Last question, I think. What does the American flag mean and represent to you?
Oh gosh, it's hard to answer with one question. I still even get teary-eyed when given the pledges of allegiance or hearing the national anthem, no matter where I'm at, because of the people that died to keep this country great, to keep other countries free, to fight for freedom in other countries, to fight for freedom for this country. And I think about the lives that have been lost and continue to be lost around the world in the name of freedom. The United States of America is what the rest of the world aspires to be. And whenever I hear our national anthem and I hear that song, I get emotional because I think of all those lives that have been lost, all those families, those Gold Star families. And that I think about these days, the amount of disrespect that some people, the contempt that some people have for that flag. It's infuriating. And this country's had it good for so long, I think they forgot what it means to be free. And I think they've forgotten that both men and women have died for that. On September 12th, 2001, we were all unified. And we had a common enemy, and we all came together. There was no party politics. And that wasn't very long ago. If you would have told me on September 12th, 2001 that this country would be in the position that it is now, I never would have believed you. That we would have people that kneel when the national anthem is played. That we would have people teaching that our forefathers were evil and this country was never great. It's disheartening to say the least. It's sad. And I'm hoping that pendulum is swinging the other way.
It's very sad. Well said, very sad. One of my Iraq veterans called what happened after 9/11. He called them, we had a bunch of armchair patriots that came out just for a week or so. And everybody in New York was cool, and then after a week they started running each other down again and the flags went away. So he said patriotism is 366 days a year. So I like that. I get so many great things from the veterans I've interviewed. And most of them are gone now, they've all died off, but I don't think it's any coincidence that with the passing of the greatest generation that all hell's breaking loose in this land.
I can't imagine what not only our forefathers, but our veterans of, World War II. And again, World War II wasn't that long ago in the grand scheme of things, and where this country has gone. It's sad. It's sad.
First thing on camera, I'm gonna shake your hand. Thank you for your service to this community for 31 years as a law enforcement officer. I thank you for that. And I know a lot of other people do. And I appreciate you and your faith in our God and everything that you said today and stand for. I just am so grateful for you, and I know a lot of others are too. And we'll be praying for your safety. It's always something that you guys need.